if we can advance quantum a little bit faster, while quantum comes with a power requirement in the terms of cooling, the actual cost to run the QPU is almost zero, right? It really doesn't cost a whole lot to run a QPU.
AI may be approaching its limits, but quantum computing could be the next leap forward. Let's dive in. Welcome to Impact Quantum. Quantum podcast, turn it up fast. Candice and Frank blowing my mind at last. Quantum podcast, they're breaking the mold. Science and sky beats, it's bold and it's...
Hello and welcome back to Impact Quantum, the podcast where we explore the emerging field of quantum computing. And you don't need to be a PhD, you just need to be a little bit curious. And with me is the most quantum curious person I know, Candice Gillhoolley. How's it going, Candice?
It's great. Today's a wonderful day. I'm really, really excited. We are going to be speaking with Danny Wall, who is the founder, CEO, and CTO at OA Quantum Labs. Hi,
Awesome.
Danny. How are you today?
I am fantastic. How about yourself?
Awesome. Doing all right. It's always good to hear from folks in a state warmer and sunnier than where I am. We had our first winter storm warning here for the season here in the Baltimore, D.C. area. And kids had a late start to school, and that always throws things off. But Candice is an old hat at snow. It's Montreal. They probably already had like 20 feet already for the season.
No, seriously, it's true. Because it usually always starts Halloween. Like you get a little bit in Halloween just to have a taste. So if your costume does not fit over your winter coat, it is not an acceptable costume here in Montreal, Quebec. But yeah, it's snowing every day. Like it just snows every day. But that's just how it is. But you learn how to deal with it, and so it's just fine, just very pretty.
We actually get our first snow overnight tonight.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh, you must be in altitude then.
About 5,000, a little over 5,000 feet. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
You're coming to us from sunny New Mexico, or normally sunny New Mexico. And so tell us, what are you doing? In the virtual green room, we spoke briefly. You're working on building something really cool.
Yeah. So I'm building a quantum lab out here. OA Quantum Labs is not just a quantum lab. So we don't do just research. All of our research is 100% geared towards creating true commercial application of quantum technology. So a good example is we are also the owners of multiple AI companies, which we have now acquired. So as part of that, we are applying quantum computing in its current state of the science to multiple different components within the AI ecosystem.
Okay.
How so? Like what particularly, I'm curious to see what the intersection of quantum and AI. Sorry.
Okay, so the very first things that we did was reducing training cost and time. That was the easiest place where a quantum could make the biggest impact. And this was back when we were still on, sub 100 qubit systems, really in the 50s somewhere, logical qubits. Now, what we are doing is we're also improving AI inference in a number of areas. I'm going to oversimplify this a little bit to the point of it almost being wrong, but it provides a good analogy. One of the things that quantum computing is really, really, really good at is math, right? It does math and complex math very, very quickly. So if you think of a quantum computer almost like a super ridiculous calculator, you can use AI for all of its inference, but when math needs to take place, you throw the math to the quantum computer, get the math done, and then it comes back. Where this works the best is in materials, when you're doing anything with materials or molecules.
Interesting. I mean, that makes sense, right? Because there's definitely a tight correlation between quantum effects and chemistry.
Yes,
And it sounds a bit like a GPU, right? In a sense, right? Like
almost.
yeah, that's what I said. A bit like, right? Like you're sending
Yes,
off, whether it's a video game, whether it's AI, or neural network training, you're just saying, here's a bunch of stuff, GPU, go for it, right?
yes,
And then you come back with an answer.
yeah, yeah. Only you're saying QPU, go for it,
QPU, yeah.
Right.
right? Yeah,
Okay.
right.
I'm
So,
hoping
So
that term catches. I'm hoping that term
yeah,
catches
yeah,
on QPU.
exactly. We do. We hear it a lot, right?
yeah, so QPU is actually already a term on that
Hmm.
thing, but quantum computing, the architecture of quantum computers is different. It's not really the same architecture where you have a central processing unit and then memory sits somewhere else, and right, and then you have buses between your CPU and your that's it's not like that in the quantum world.
Interesting.
The memory is let's call it on chip.
Right. Well, there's also the thing, like once you read the memory, do you collapse the quantum state? I know that like once you get into kind of the brass tacks of beyond like the theoretical, like you start to get it starts to get weird real fast, right? Because like, how do you debugging a quantum system, right? We've already talked with some other guests about that. Like that's, how do you, how do you step through the code, right? And like you peek at the variables. Well, as soon as you do that in a quantum system, you
You're
know,
collapsing.
you're collapsing it
Yeah.
and you kind of lose the
Yeah.
advantage of quantum. Yeah. So
Right.
like I would imagine that there's a lot of these little gotchas that nobody's really fully kind of worked through just yet.
So there are, and this is why, um, as long as you understand what the limitations are, quantum has some really significant advantages right now. Um, this is the reason why JP Morgan, as an example, is spending $1.5 billion on quantum computing, because there are certain things, certain mathematics, QAOA, right? Quantum approximate optimization algorithms, right? Where you're using quantum to do certain mathematical functions that just take too long, and they're take a second or two on quantum. They take minutes on classical, and when you're in the world of finance, a minute is too long. Same goes with um, advanced correlation algorithms. You get into quantum advanced correlation algorithms, and those run really ridiculously a lot faster.
Right. But not
So
for all
we
problems, just certain types
Yes,
of
that's what I'm
problems.
saying. Yeah, when
Yeah.
you understand what problem domains quantum is really good at, it becomes a lot easier, faster to start applying commercial application to it.
Gotcha.
So you
Yeah.
talked about the financial sector. What other industries do you think are the most primed to benefit first
Okay,
from
so
this?
where it's already benefiting is anything where you need molecular or quantum knowledge or effects or whatever, right? So materials sciences is a big one. In partnership with Ursling Quantum Innovations, we have created the single most advanced materials, let's call it engineering platform in the world. Right, our nearest competitor is, oh my gosh, I was just going to say them. Um, they just got this massive amount of money, and I totally spaced their name. Cusp AI, I think that's what it is. They're supposed to be a material science platform. They need 6 months and an entire team of material scientists to do almost anything. And we were spinning out new materials at the pace of a new one every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
like we have we created a material that is stronger and harder than carbon fiber, but about half the price to manufacture. We created brand new heat shielding that is survives multiple reentries and is far less expensive to produce than what SpaceX is using today. We created a new material, a new advanced material for heat management. It basically pulls heat away to use as like heat sinks and those kinds of things. That is far better than anything that exists. So we were creating so many new materials so fast that we overran the sales team's ability to keep up. So we spun that out into a brand new company, and now that guy is off to the races. So the other place where it helps a lot is, again, in modeling quantum effects. I was able to create a whole brand new GPU kernel that is far better than Flash Attention V2, because I modeled how electrons flow through a GPU and therefore was able to optimize the code for how the attention mechanisms work on inference.
Interesting. What sorts of hardware does this run on? I'm sorry, Candice.
No, go ahead.
What sorts of hardware, or is it hardware agnostic?
Oh, no. So, I mean, I wrote it to be very specific to the NVIDIA H100, A100 and above, better,
Okay,
right?
That makes sense.
When I wrote it, it was when the X was coming out with all the news about their brand new Colossus supercluster, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I wonder if I could, since I can model molecules and all that kind of, and quantum effects and all that other kinds of good stuff, can I model how things flow through a GPU and therefore improve on how the attention mechanism works within a GPU, and it's better by a lot.
Interesting.
Some between 1.5 and 3x improved inference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Depending on where you are in the stack. Do you need sparse attention, or all of a sudden I drew a blank on the name, sparse attention, or wow, I deal with this every day, and all of a sudden I blanked it. Sparse attention is the thing that you really kind of need the least of. But yeah, so
I gotcha. Okay, I mean, that makes sense.
Look, honestly, everything you're talking about is so incredibly exciting. So how do newcomers interested in quantum and AI, researchers, entrepreneurs, investors, what advice or first steps would you recommend today to get them involved meaningfully?
Okay, so that's really going to depend on which one of those you're talking about. For investors, the biggest thing that I would say is to is in two areas. Number one, look for people that don't necessarily have the pedigree. It becomes really, really easy in quantum to assume that that you got to have the PhD, and the more PhDs on the team, the better. And you see a lot of that. You look at D-Wave, Quantinuum, QEra, right? You look at all of these guys, and what you see is this long list of PhDs. And the truth is that companies like mine are completely blowing their doors off. I'm rapidly getting to the point I don't even know how they're going to keep up. We have created a quantum error correction algorithm that reduces physical to logical overhead by 100.
Wow.
So it's better. It's better by so much. It's almost it's almost hard to believe. And we had to run it on the IBM Lima and Bell M benchmarks. We had to run that thing 3 times because we sort of assumed that it couldn't have been right the first time.
Right.
How is this good? So number one, look for people that are actually doing it. Number two, look for people that don't just need a check. Right. So too often investors are giving money to people either because of pedigree or because they go, oh, this guy has got 2 successful exits, so probably they can do a third one. But you look back at history and that's not true at all. Right? Look at pets.com. Pets.com from, way back in the dot bomb era, right? It was started by multiple people that had done
Right.
multiple different successful exits, and that thing was a disaster. Right?
No, it's true. And you mentioned that, and 3DO. Do you remember, speaking of the 90s? Remember
Yes.
3DO? 3DO was like, I remember the Wired magazine article cover
Mhm.
was like the digital start of the rise of the digital supergroup. And
Yeah.
aside from like a handful of people who remember the 90s, no one knows what 3DO was, right? Like it
No.
was just like, and you're right, like pedigree. I think there's a temptation. I think this brings up a deeper point. Like there's a temptation to over buy on pedigree.
Yes. Whether it's in quantum, the assumption that, well, how could you possibly understand quantum if you don't have a PhD? And the
Right.
answer is look at the solutions that are created, right? And then the second thing, if somebody, just because somebody says I have something, or maybe they actually do, I mean, and this is something most venture capitalists or investors are already pretty good at, is going, let me see your customers. You know, is there actually market traction for it? At the end of the day, so OA Quantum Labs isn't looking for an investor.
Right.
But assuming that we were, we don't only have solutions, we have customers. So because we have solutions and customers, like I don't need your money. If I was going to take money from an investor, it would only be because that investor was bringing me some kind of strategic alliance that I like, that it's worth more than the equity that I would give up. Does that make sense?
No, I mean that makes sense. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting point you bring up. Like, it's about selling solutions,
Yeah.
not the science. Right? It's almost like we got to give you a free copy of our book
Yeah.
on selling quantum solutions, right? Because like it's almost like you've read it, like because you're basically saying effectively the same thing, just like it.
Yeah.
That you're right. Like if you can prove the value, and I forget what it was like months versus weeks, like you could prove that real value to a business. It doesn't really matter how many PhDs you have. I mean,
Correct.
obviously somebody has to, check the numbers and make sure the answers you get are, legit. But I mean, at some point, it's really where the rubber meets the road, right? Like I would not have
Exactly.
thought, if you look at pets.com compared to Amazon, I mean, in the 90s, people would have assumed pets.com would have won. Barnes and Noble, like the same story. Fun fact, I worked at barnesandnoble.com, right?
Oh wow.
I was the first webmaster there, and
Wow.
underestimating people who are relentless is a mistake.
Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to, let's say it's a developer who's interested in quantum,
Mhm.
I would say, I would say that the best way for a developer to get involved in quantum is to get a quantum cloud account and to start creating stuff. Don't mess around with research. Don't like, I mean, yeah, take some time to learn, you know, uh, KISS or whatever, the different um, DLLs that get wrapped up into
Right.
Python. But yeah, take some time to learn what you're writing. But as soon as you can learn something, start creating something from it. Right?
Right.
Don't sit around and wait. Create something from it, because there is no substitute for experience. And the problem that most developers have is that they've spent their entire lives either A, in school being taught, or B, in their careers on classical binary digital computers that are very time dependent and sequentially processed. Whereas quantum is non-time dependent and simultaneously processed, and therefore the way you have to even think about how you architect a solution is different. How you think about how you're going to write the code is different. And you don't know those things, or I would be better to say it's hard to understand those things until you start writing the code and start seeing what happens. Right?
Right. No,
So,
that's a good way to put it.
yeah.
Sorry, Candice, I'll be quiet now.
No, I'm just thinking about, you come from such a unique background, because most leaders are, they're either in the quantum world or they're in the AI world, but because you're in both, it gives you such a unique advantage to have this dual fluency. So how do you find that affects, you being founder and CTO and CEO of your company?
It definitely, in a lot of ways, makes the commercial potential and applicability of what I'm doing better or easier. It means that when I am selling solutions, I can articulate to people like this is why what we're doing works better, right? And I'm able to speak to the CTOs of people. AI is getting to be understood well enough now in the enterprise and all those kinds of things, that when I start to explain, okay, this is where the AI is, and this is where the quantum is, and this is why the quantum matters, it's a pretty simple conversation to have these days. Now, especially now that they know that I'm bringing quantum enhancement. I'm not saying this is a quantum solution, it's a quantum enhancement, and it's a very subtle distinction, but the gap between them is, about the distance from one side of the Grand Canyon to the other.
Well, it
So
also frames the conversation differently. Sorry, Candice.
No, I was thinking, so does that mean that the AI accelerates the quantum?
No,
Or
the
does
other
the
way
quantum
around.
so the quantum accelerates the AI?
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's because it's quantum accelerating the AI. By having the discussion in that way, it means that the business people can understand it better. It means I can now have a much quicker conversation about this is what it means to your bottom line, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters, right?
Right.
If you're going to go to any enterprise, you had better be able to say that either A, my solution is going to improve revenue, or B, it's going to reduce your cost and therefore improve profit. If you can't say it's going to do A, B, or both, don't even bother having the discussion, because it doesn't matter.
Right. It's all about solutioning.
Yes.
Yes. Not tech for the sake of tech. I mean,
right.
Tech for the sake of tech is an academic conversation.
Correct.
And that's fine for academia, but not outside of academia.
Correct. And to me, quantum has gone far enough now that it no longer even should be in academia. And this is why you're seeing, even though there's been a lot of news stories lately about, the bursting of the quantum bubble, or whatever. And, D-Wave and Quantinuum and Rigetti have all been, let's call it, punished a little bit. But the truth is that as we start having more of a business discussion, this is the business problems that we are solving right now today, the more that discussion goes away, because now quantum starts moving into the data center, and it really needs to get there for there to be additional significant investment to improve the technology.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we got to get it out of the research lab and into the enterprise. Very important.
So if you're to look back earlier in your work, when you had that moment where you realized that this isn't just something theoretical, but this is actually something that I can commercialize, what clicked for you?
Okay, so one of the companies that I acquired is HughesGPT. I was originally the CTO of HughesGPT. So at HughesGPT is we have the most advanced digital identity solution by a very wide margin. Nobody else is even close. And we use behavioral biometrics as a way of we are 99 point and then add 7 9% of ability to distinguish between one human and another human. And because it's that accurate, it means we are that accurate also distinguishing between a deep fake. I have had people create deep fakes of themselves and not be able to defeat our solution.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah. So when it clicked was when the training was taking too long, and I was like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to this stupid thing? And this is one of these weird sort of so AI is an odd thing in general. It can be odd. I am well known for saying that AI is really some shockingly simple algorithms. And it is about as intelligent actually as your calculator, right? Everybody wants to talk about, is AI sentient? Is AI conscious? Is AI, and how soon are we going to get to AGI? I don't think we're going to get to AGI anytime soon. I really don't. In fact, they've tried to change where AGI is from it being able to reason as good as a human to simply being as what's where they use not learn, it's like adaptability or something. Like they changed the bar for what's going to be considered AGI from reasoning capability to adaptability or something like that. And I just rolled my eyes and went, well, this is stupid. To me, it's not. Yeah, it's if you can't reason as good as even an average IQ person, then that's not artificial general intelligence. It's just not. So anyway, I just on a lark, I asked the AI to consider itself as a high IQ materials scientist and to give me ways that I could improve the speed of training of the application. And what it came up with was basically use quantum computing, and it also output a whole bunch of Circ code. And I was like, well, this is interesting. So just as a hint to your audience, I know this is a quantum thing, but just as a sort of trick with AI, if you tell an AI to act in a role that is only sort of tertiary to what its actual thing that you're asking it to do. Let's say you wanted to review code, tell it that it's a chemist and to review the code from the viewpoint of a chemist. It will actually be more, for lack of a better word, creative. I know AI isn't actually creative, but sort of it comes up with some really interesting responses that I have found dramatically improves it often its output because of its having to, like I said, for lack of a better word, be creative. But anyway, so the very first thing that I did was implement quantum to improve the training of HughGPT. Then that grew into improving the inference of HughGPT. But in improving the inference of HughGPT, I sort of by accident, for lack of a better way of putting it, created this system for how molecules and all of those kinds of things are modeled. I created a physics-informed neural network. Let me rephrase that. A quantum-enhanced physics-informed neural network. That then grew to where I was using pins, PINOs. So PIN, physics-informed neural network, physics-informed neural operator, GAN, which is a graph neural network, and a GNO, which is a graph neural operator. so I started putting all of these things together and stuck quantum in the middle of it for doing the math. And then that grew into materials and grew into molecular modeling and all those kinds of things. So it sort of came to me, for lack of a better word, by accident, um, because of output from an AI, and then just from deep diving into quantum that's how these things happened.
Interesting.
What misconceptions do you run into the most when people hear AI plus quantum? And how do you try to reframe the conversation so they understand what's actually possible?
The biggest one is they think I'm running the AI on quantum. Right. That's the biggest one. They go, you're running an AI on quantum. And then, we go back into the whole, is it conscious or whatever thing? And which I admittedly have a pretty low tolerance for. It irritates me when I hear, people wanting to talk about, how intelligent they are, that they might be conscious or might be sentient or whatever. That stuff really is a pet peeve. I don't know why it drives me so crazy, but it does. Um, but so anyway, that's the first misconception. The second misconception, and it comes from people within the AI industry, is the belief that quantum doesn't really have commercial application, that it doesn't really apply to AI, and oh, you're just playing a game. You're not really doing what you're saying. You're not really doing blah blah blah. I'm like, no, it's kind of hard to argue with the results, right? At the end of the day, you give me a problem domain for a material and I can spin out that material in 2 weeks. You tell me how I'm doing that without quantum enhancing a lot of different things. Right. And my nearest competitor needs 6 months. The nearest competitor from them needs 18 months. Right. Schrodinger needs 18 months. Right.
Well, I think there's a lot to that, right? Like, there's this idea of speed. The Grant Cardone, one of my favorite kind of sales authors. He has
I love him.
Like, yeah. Everyone, you either love him or you hate him. There's nobody in the middle. But he has a phrase that really stuck with me. It's called "Speed is the new big."
Yes. 100% believe that. The phrase I use all the time is "money loves speed."
Yep. Oh, I like that one.
That's true too.
That's a quotable.
That's quotable, right?
I actually think I got that one from Jay Abraham. I don't know if you remember him or not, but
No,
he's another big sales guy from like the 90s.
Interesting.
So you're building in a field where things are evolving daily. Yeah. How do you stay ahead?
Okay, so here's things evolve fast, but when you're in the field, some of the times you almost wish they would evolve faster, especially in quantum. So quantum error correction has two separate problems. One, you want to maintain coherence for as long as possible, and number two, you want to prevent decoherence. Right? Two sides of the same fence. Let's call it. So because of the nature of qubits and quantum and all of that it's a lot harder. Those two pieces of the puzzle are a lot harder than it sounds. So even though I've got this really great quantum error correction algorithm where we can maintain coherence for about 4x longer. So instead of about 300 microseconds, we're getting about 1.3 milliseconds. We can maintain coherence, right? The best that we have been able to do on the decoherence side is predicting, well, these qubits are likely to decohere, therefore we can ignore those on the other side of the gate, right? Because why pay attention? So we can sort of cut down on the amount of noise because we're ignoring the qubits that decohered.
So you're almost doing quality assurance or QA on the qubits themselves.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it. But there still needs to be a lot more work done in the lab on this aspect of preventing decoherence and maintaining coherence, because there's only so much that can be done on the software side, let's call it, or the kernel side, where for that preventing decoherence or maintaining coherence, right? I can help the maintaining of coherence some, right? Like I said, extended about 4x, but that's the best I can possibly get out of it. I'm not going to get because now it's a hardware issue, right? I can only do so much. And this has been a problem for really a very, very, very long, since quantum started. And it hasn't improved a whole lot. So there, that's a big one. We still need a lot more work in the lab, because until we can solve the coherence decoherence issue, scaling beyond where we are now is going to be near impossible, because there's just too much noise.
What do you think it's going to take to solve that problem?
Materials.
Like new materials to be developed that the qubits, the quantum systems are made out of?
Absolutely. So I personally am convinced that that really is the major issue. Is that part of the reason why we're having these coherence problems is that the materials aren't sufficient. And I can say I can spin out new materials once every 2 weeks, but number one, I can only sell so many. And getting these new materials through into the companies that are doing the research, IBM, Google, Quantinuum, Rigetti, QEra, those guys, that can only happen so fast unless I'm physically part of their engineering teams, which of course I'm not. I've got my own company, right? So, I would like to have a much more in-depth discussion with these guys about why their materials are causing the decoherence, even though I suspect they kind of know it. So that way those kinds of problems can be solved. But even once the new materials have been engineered, then they've got to get actually into the QPU. Like, there's process that happens with this. So while from the outside, to go back to something, Candice, you had said before, it seems like things are moving fast. In a lot of ways, they still need to move faster. Because quantum, we need AI right now is starting to bounce up against theoretical maximums. So because it's starting to bounce up against theoretical maximums, this is why once we hit about GPT-3, you can almost draw a line there, and you can see that the pace of AI improvement started slowing down, and we stopped going from, it almost seemed like every few months there was this massive new improvements that we were getting out of AI, and lately all you're getting is incremental, very slow incremental improvements. Context windows are getting a little bit longer. Now it can remember past conversations a little bit better, or its ability to reason through code is slightly improved. But that's all we're getting. And we're getting that at the expense of massive new power requirements.
Yeah, that's a big
right.
issue, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas if we can advance quantum a little bit faster, while quantum comes with a power requirement in the terms of cooling, the actual cost to run the QPU is almost zero, right? It really doesn't cost a whole lot to run a QPU.
Right.
Beyond the cooling, right? The cooling is, of course, is expensive, right? I'm not saying that the dilution fridges, they're not cheap to buy them alone, $500,000 per. And then the cost to run them is, you got to keep it, we're in dot Kelvin range. But assuming we can get beyond those with materials, we can find that that we're able to push AI forward a lot, because we really need to start running some of these neural networks, especially convolutional, on quantum.
Right. Interesting. And for those that are not familiar with convolutional neural networks, are a type of neural network architecture that's really good for image
Images.
processing. Typically,
Yes,
yeah.
images and video. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody had an experimental use case for them. I'm sorry, go ahead, Candice.
I was wondering, has there been a breakthrough or a micro innovation inside your lab that may not have made headlines, but signals like a major shift in what's possible?
Well, there's been a few of them. The fact that I can engineer new materials in 2 weeks is a big one. That's
Right?
a really, really, really big one.
Okay.
And like I said, we completely overran the ability of a sales team to even possibly keep up. We have some of the new materials we have going to North American Stainless or U.S. Steel,
Okay.
and then also to Ford. So some of the heat management, like heat shielding and all that kind of good stuff, Ford will be looking at shortly. But when you're talking about materials, when you create engineer a material, especially when it's in silico, then they say, okay, well now you got to create the thing, and then once you create the thing, then you have to test it, and then once you test it, then it has to get rolled into production and blah blah blah, right?
Right.
Yeah, but uh, um, so the materials is really, really a big one. We haven't uh, announced it broadly at all, uh, partially because it would be too easy to be too overwhelmed too fast. So that's a big one. The quantum error encryption would definitely be another one. We aren't talking, the only people we've talked to about our QEC so far is IBM. And that's because we benchmark it. We did our benchmarking on their systems. So, they're a pretty easy one to have that discussion with. But, IBM is a behemoth, right? It takes them, even IBM Quantum, it takes forever, to get anywhere. But they're an obvious first place, and our quantum encryption algorithm is even agnostic. It doesn't matter whose hardware it is. The error correction is going to work no matter what. Whether it's D-Wave or Quantinuum or whoever. So those would, the error correction would be a big one, and the materials, I say it's a quantum enhanced pin, but that's only to simplify the discussion. There's 4 different neural networks, and then what I call a controlling neural network that sits above it, and sort of in the middle, if to think about it architecture wise, in the middle is where the quantum enhancement sits, and the various neural networks sort of all talk to each other and talk to the quantum as a way of making this thing run so fast.
Interesting. I know Candice usually asks this question. What's the biggest misconception out there about your business and kind of what you're up to?
So I guess I have to say there's 2 of them. And it depends on who you're talking to. Number one is in the business, too much of business outside of finance. This isn't so much true of in the finance sector. They're starting to understand quantum because of QA/OA. They're starting to understand, but outside of the financial vertical, there's still too much belief that quantum is a laboratory and research effort, and there's no real true commercial applicability to it. And that's just completely false. That's probably the biggest one. And if we're talking about developers, I like to give this sort of as a hint. Most developers are using quantum computing almost like a trinary system. And I've had quantum developers disagree with me on this. And then I say, okay, let's look at your code. And I prove it to them. You, most most people are using quantum computers almost like a trinary computational device.
You're going to have to explain that. I roughly know what that is, but
Okay,
I,
so
I would like to be
binary.
enlightened on terms of the difference between that, because I've had this discussion and I didn't have a good answer to counter the statement.
Yeah. Okay. So right now, digital computers, classical computers are binary. All right. It's a 1 or a 0, and that's it. Okay. Most people are using quantum computers the same way. So think of 1 or 0 as spin up, spin down, right? And then you have superposition. Okay. So trinary is spin up, spin down, superposition. Those are the three.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And they don't go any deeper with superposition. They stop there. Superposition actually means more than just both, which is what superposition sort of means, but it doesn't just mean only that. So it's how do I put this in a way that I don't give away too much of my own secret sauce? So
But
if
you could treat it that way. You could treat it like a trinary system, and you wouldn't
yes,
be wrong, but you're not taking advantage of the
the
superposition.
full advantage, yes.
Right. So for most normal people, I think a good way to look at this as like a checkbox on an online form, right? It's either checked,
Correct.
unchecked, or some designers will have a third space, means you never touched it, right? So it's either kind of like yes, no, or unknown would be another one, right?
Right. So you
No.
could almost use it like a maybe. So what most developers are effectively doing it is using it like a maybe. Yes, no, maybe. On, off, don't know. Right.
But strictly speaking, superposition is yes and no at the same time.
Correct. And it's not that it's yes. So yes, it's yes and no at the same time. But so let's I don't. This might be getting a little bit deep into the woods, but let's look at Schrodinger's cat for a minute.
Right.
Okay. In the thought experiment, it's the cat can be thought of as alive and dead at the same time. But here's the truth. The cat could also be thought of as in the process of dying.
Okay.
So it's not just alive and dead at the same time. It's alive, dead, and in the process of dying. And if it's in the process of dying, how far along the process of dying is it?
Okay.
Okay.
I got
So, so there is a saying from a personal development guy that I really like a lot. Most people in the personal development space, the minute they say quantum physics says, the next words that come out of their mouth are nonsense. Okay, nonsense. Dr. Joe Dispenza does a really good job when he says quantum physics says the next words that come out of his mouth are probably going to be right. When they are wrong, it's usually he's in the early part of his discussion. He's trying to get you to understand something. And if you listen to him a little bit longer, he makes it correct. So superposition is not just both. A better way of describing superposition would be it is a definition of all possible possibilities.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's what superposition actually is. So if it's all possible possibilities, that opens up more than just trinary computation. And that is about as far deep into the woods on that subject as I will get. Because
that's fair. We're
yeah.
at the top. We're towards the top of the hour, so like it's probably, we'd love to have you back because yeah, no, I feel you. Like there's a lot to unpack there. I can kind of sense like, oh, this. It's kind of like you pull a thread on a sweater. Like, oh, it's not just this little bit. It's actually way
then,
more than I anticipated.
Yeah, and then you start getting into the woods of what is superposition exactly, and whether it's We're talking about when you're measuring spin up, spin down, it's because you have collapsed the particle into a particle, and
Right.
superposition is actually just the waveform.
Right, and that
Right, and then you start
becomes,
getting the double
yeah,
slit and all those kinds of fun things. Yeah, I can.
retrocausality, and like
Correct.
you start, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I can get geek out on this for kind of a
Well, we'd
long
love to
time.
have you back on the show where we
Yeah,
could repeat.
absolutely. This has been a fantastic conversation. We really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I've
100%.
had a lot of fun.
Quantum podcast, turn it up fast. Candice and Frank blowing my mind at last. Quantum podcast, they're breaking the mold. Science and sky beats, it's bold and it's gold. The multiverse is skanking in time. Black holes are wailing in a horn line so fine. From Planck scales to planets, they're connecting the dots. Candice and Frank, they're the cosmic hot shot. Quantum podcast, turn it up fast. Candice and Frank blowing my mind at last. Quantum podcast, they're breaking the mold. Science and sky beats, it's bold and it's gold.